In this video, I'd like to talk about the math question of the day for Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. And with this question, we're asked, what is the equation of a line perpendicular to this linear equation here, y is equal to minus 3x plus 4, that passes through the point minus 1 comma 6. And perpendicular lines are typically taught in geometry, though sometimes they're taught in an Algebra 1 class. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can work through this on your own. And when you're ready, unpause the video and we can go through this together. Now, assuming that you have attempted the problem, let's start working through it. And with linear equations, especially when they're expressed in this form, y is equal to something times x plus or minus some number, this is our slope-intercept form. And we can write it more generally as y is equal to mx plus b, where m, the coefficient on x, that's the slope of the line, and b, this is our y-intercept, which occurs when we plug in x is equal to 0, and this is the value at which our line here crosses the y-axis. And you can see this is true because if you plug in 0 here, this term will go away and you just get y is equal to b. Now, with our given line, we can figure out the slope of the line. And we could also figure out the y-intercept, that's just 4. But we are really only concerned with the slope, since we're looking for the line that's perpendicular to this line. And we can see that the slope of this line, which we can call m, is negative 3. And if we're looking for the slope of a line that's perpendicular to this, we will use this information to find the slope of that line. And in general, if we have two lines that are perpendicular, so if I roughly sketch these in, these lines will cross at some right angle, a 90-degree angle. And let's say the slope of this line is m1, and the slope of this line is m2. The property of perpendicular lines, when concerned with their slopes, is that if you multiply the two slopes together, this product is always equal to negative 1. Or we can express it differently. We can say that m1 is the opposite of the reciprocal of m2. So if we know the slope of one line and we're looking for the slope of the line perpendicular to that, we will take the opposite of that line and flip the fraction over. So if the slope of our given line is this negative 3 and we want to find the slope of the perpendicular line, what we can do, I can write it as m perpendicular. We can write this slope over 1. We can flip the fraction and take the opposite of whatever the sign is. And since it's negative, we will make it positive, and we will flip this fraction over. And we can see that it satisfies this property because if we multiply them together, minus 3 over 1, the slope of the given line, multiplied by the slope of the perpendicular line, we'll just multiply straight across. We get minus 3 divided by 3, which is negative 1. It does satisfy this property. So this right here is the slope of the perpendicular line that we're looking for. And to figure out what the y-intercept is, there are two main approaches that we can use. We can use this slope-intercept form by just plugging in what x and y are equal to and what we know the slope is, and then solving for b. Or we can use point-slope form. And either of those methods are completely valid. You might remember point-slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m multiplied by x minus x1. And let's use the point-slope form, but like I mentioned, we could just call this x and y, plug this in for x, this negative 1 right here. We could plug in 1/3 for m and 6 for y, and then just solve this for b. And then we would have our equation in this slope-intercept form. But we can get practice using point-slope because this is especially useful whenever we know a point on the line and we know the slope of the line, which in this case, we know both of those. So we can say this is x1 and this is y1 in our formula. So let's actually plug those in now. We have y minus y1, which is 6, and this is equal to m, which for our perpendicular line is 1/3. That's our slope, multiplied by x minus x1, and we're subtracting -1, which is the same as adding +1. And at this point, we just need to simplify everything. So let me just make a little bit more room so we can finish this. And what we'll do next is distribute this 1/3 to each of these, and we can add 6 to each side of the equation. So we get y is 1/3 x, we're distributing, and 1/3 times by 1 is 1/3, and then we're adding 6 to both sides. That canceled out the -6 here. Though we can write 6 as 18/3 so that we can add these fractions. And actually carrying out this fraction addition, we would get plus 19/3. So this right here will be the equation of the line that's perpendicular to the line that we were given and that passes through this point. And you can see it does pass through this point if you actually plug in the value of -1 for x and 6 for y. This will simplify to something that is in fact true.